Hello and welcome to Business Talk, brought to you by the Sharonville Chamber of Commerce. I'm Britt Scarce with Emory Federal Credit Union. I'm your host, and here today in studio we have Janice Urbanik with the National Fund for Workforce Solutions. She is the Director for Innovation and Safety. Janice, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So, Janice, I hear so many people across the country, and including here in Sharonville, that say they're having trouble finding people to come and work for their company.
Yep.
They're finding them with the right skills and being able to retain them. Mm-hmm. So, what are companies to do about that?
Right. It's a huge issue, not only here in Sharonville and in the greater Cincinnati area, but nationally. It is a huge issue. And a lot of times people talk about that they can't find the right skills. And while that is a very big factor, there are other considerations at play around the accessibility of childcare if they have young children that need to be cared for. A lot of times you'll hear from employers that people can't pass a drug test, or they have a criminal background that prevents them from hiring them, or they don't have reliable transportation. They have a car that breaks down all the time. One other reason why people are having trouble getting a job or keeping a job that isn't getting much visibility is intimate partner violence. We did a study here locally in Cincinnati that indicated that up to 50% of the people who are enrolled in a job training program, trying to get the skills that they need, have someone in their life exerting power and control in their life to prevent them from completing that program or taking a job.
Really?
That's mostly women, but not exclusively women. And sadly, many of those women have children at home. So it becomes a generational impact.
Yeah.
The other reason why a lot of employers are having challenges filling their positions is, frankly, people can't afford to take their jobs, which
they can't
afford to take their jobs. And so what do I mean by that?
Yeah.
For a family of four to be able to afford just the basics, food, rent, utilities, a family of four needs about $50,000 a year, which works out to be about $24 an hour. Now that's just to afford the basics. In the greater Cincinnati region, 3 out of 4 jobs pay less than $50,000 a year. So it's really challenging for someone to be able to take a job that won't allow them to even to be able to afford the basics.
Right.
One key factor really driving that is the cost of housing. Since 2000, the cost of housing has gone up 46%.
Yeah, I believe it.
But wages have only gone up about 19%.
Yeah.
So when most of the jobs in our region start at between $12 and $15 an hour, a person is still eligible for public benefits. So they're still eligible to get food stamps or housing assistance or child care assistance.
Yeah.
But what happens a lot of times is when a person takes a job or gets a raise or picks up extra hours, they precipitously lose those benefits, and it's called the cliff effect. So someone might get a small raise, and they're actually worse off. They have less money to bring home. So this cliff effect is a real huge issue.
Yeah.
So what it all means is people are living a very tenuous financial life. And the recent statistic came out nationally that said that 40% of people don't have $400 to cover an emergency. So those are all reasons why employers are having challenges.
Yeah, I see that in the financial world.
Yeah.
A lot of people with, they don't have emergency funds, and they would have to borrow if they have something over a $400, expense, and that's that's not good.
Your car breaks down, or one of your kids gets sick, and you don't have good health insurance. Yeah,
Seems like most emergencies are, quite honestly, closer to $1,000 anymore than.
That's for sure. That is for sure. Yes.
So how do we fix this cliff effect thing?
So the cliff effect issue it's a big one, and it's one that impacts state policy, frankly. And the challenge is a lot of the public benefits are run through many different state agencies. So if someone's getting SNAP, which is food stamps, that's administered by a different organization than than the agency that provides child care and all of that. So it really needs to be done at a state level where the funding, instead of dropping off precipitously when a person gets a small raise, that it's much more tapered off.
Yeah.
The problem is that's not a revenue neutral solution, and so
it costs more money.
It costs more money. So there's a lot of groups like the Women's Fund at the Greater Cincinnati Foundation has been doing a lot of work and research around what's being done nationally and in other communities. and trying to come up with some policy recommendations to help fix the issue.
So is there anything that employers can do to perhaps pay higher wages? I mean, without totally putting them in a bad way? And
Right. So there's a lot of things that employers can be doing, and there's a couple of ways that they need to think about it. First of all, they need to be thinking about, I call it fishing in better stocked ponds, around looking for untapped sources of labor. And right now, the two largest sources of pools of labor are people who are already working, but are working in low-wage positions, like they might have multiple part-time positions at fast food restaurants or elsewhere. Or the people who are the long-term unemployed. So our labor force participation rate is about 65%, maybe a little bit less than that. It's been pretty static. That means that there's a whole bunch of people that are sitting on the bench for a variety of reasons. So employers need to be thinking about how can they tap into those labor pools and be able to incentivize individuals to come work for them if they have a better job.
But if they're already working like multiple jobs, they one of the big challenges that people say is they can't find people to show up and then be on time and be ready to work. So if you have folks that are already at least working those jobs, I mean, hopefully those issues are, not as big of a deal.
Exactly. They have a proven work ethic. They've managed, they've figured out their transportation systems and their child care and all of that. So but
that's just teaching them the skills that they need at that point.
Exactly. But what an employer needs to do is they need to think about how do they create a talent development strategy that's built into their business strategy. A lot of times employers think about it as an initiative. And we all know when a company starts an initiative, those come and go. But if it's embedded in their business strategy, it becomes something they pay a lot of attention to because it's embedded in the growth of their company. So to your point, what an employer can do is think about it as a market issue. So say they want to go after someone who might be working multiple part-time positions and all they need is the skills because they've figured everything else out. Well, how can an employer create a value proposition for that person to come work for them? How do they think about what are their needs? Is it the training? So how can the employer provide that training for them and pay for it? And perhaps help them make that transition from where they're currently working into the new workplace. It's creating that value proposition, but then also thinking about once they start working for them, how do they continue to advance them, build their skills long term? It's what they do for their base business clients every day. You think about if they want to go get a new customer, they figure out their pain points, create a value proposition, they get a new customer, and they deliver value after the sale. Take that same approach with their employees. Exactly. The other thing that they can do is thinking about how can they redesign their jobs and how can they provide additional supports or opportunities for their workers to incentivize folks to come work for them. So the National Fund for Workforce Solutions has come up with a job design framework, which is a menu of options that employers can consider. So things like better scheduling practices. If an employer has a very short notice policy for working overtime, if you're a working parent and you have someone watching your kid and you're told that you need to work an extra 4 hours, you may not be able to.
I mean, you have to pick a child up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So making adjustments to their scheduling practices. Clearly, some things about wages. I heard an HR person from Tyson Foods. So big Tyson Foods. They talked about they help their employees with financial wellness tools to help them understand how to become more financially stable. And what they said is when we help our employees become more stable, our workforce metrics become more stable.
Makes
so
sense.
When we help the employee, it helps our business. In fact,
when your employee's not stressed about money, it solves a lot of other problems.
Exactly. And Tyson saw 123% ROI and a 10x reduction in their turnover.
Wow.
So they had much more engaged employees, and it worked for them.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, because usually that's the reason for the missed work and maybe even being distracted while they're at work because they're dealing with a collector on the phone or whatever the case might be.
Or they're thinking, how am I going to put food on the table tonight? And who's going to watch my kids tomorrow or whatever? So absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
So let's say the employer makes a bunch of changes. So so how do they know if they're actually making a difference? I mean, other than what we just talked about. I mean,
Right.
that obviously made a huge difference.
Right, right. Well, a lot of times what I have found is when we talk to employers around, do they understand their cost of turnover? I'm surprised a lot of employers don't know that.
It costs a lot of money to onboard people.
Exactly, exactly.
You would think they would know.
Exactly, but they don't. And so, in fact, I had an employer say, I don't know and I don't want to know because I know it's a big number.
Really?
But we asked them, do you understand your cost of lost business? And he said yes. He had 3 contracts that he was considering not signing because he didn't think he was going to have the workforce. And
Wow.
so when we talked to him about, do you understand the value of those contracts, that lost business, he goes, oh yeah, I know that to the penny. So an employer needs to think about it around, you're going to be making these investments in your workers. How is that going to impact your bottom line? However you measure your bottom line, if it's cost of lost business or cost of turnover or whatever. There is a tool that has been developed by the Aspen Institute, a big national organization, in working metrics that helps an employer look at their employment data over a 3-year basis, and it helps them understand when it's benchmarked versus an industry average for their industry, a national industry average, how they compare on job growth, wage growth, and turnover, and what their benefit plans are for paid time off, retirement, and health care. And so an employer can use this tool, get that data, and they can start to identify when they make these changes, are they moving their wage growth? Are they moving their retention numbers?
Well, how do you track how you're doing unless you're tracking how you're doing?
Exactly, exactly. And the plus side is if an employer uses this tool or gets some good data, they can use that to get more business. They can, because people who are buying services or products from them know that a company who has superior people outcomes is going to deliver a superior product or service. So they can talk about that as they're trying to get new customers.
Yeah.
To say, hey, we've got great people systems here. Our people don't leave us. We can give you a consistent product.
Yeah. Well, it would amaze me. It would amaze me that a business owner would not understand the value of retaining employees and not understanding that that turnover is
Right.
it's costly to onboard people constantly, and there are many places that I've heard that have as much as 50% turnover or higher.
Oh, some of the numbers are shocking, up into 3 digits, and so
my
they're
God.
literally turning their entire
Literally.
staff over. Yes.
How do you remain consistent with anything doing that?
Yeah, you can't.
I mean, and that's got to be very, not only cost, prohibitive, but it also has to just be aggravating.
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
I would just get tired of having to teach the same thing
Train
all the
people over and over and over again. So yeah, not only are there business benefits by being able to reduce those kind of turnover costs, delivering superior products and services, the other benefit is when a company makes these investments, their reputation gets better.
Yeah.
Because we know word of mouth is such an important motivator. So
Well, you hear of places where it's like, oh yeah, they treat their people terrible. It's like a
Exactly.
sweatshop, shop over there, and
exactly.
Yeah.
So some of your best recruiters are the people who are already working for you.
Right.
But it also builds their reputation in the community. Like
Yeah.
you said, people know, oh, go work for company XYZ because that's a top-notch shop. If you
Yeah.
get in there, you're doing well.
yeah,
But let me issue a challenge. Think about just Sharonville for right now. Not only can we, if we could get 1 or 2 companies to be really making some changes, think about if we could get a bunch of companies in Sharonville to really start to invest in their workers, start to really build their business, build that corporate reputation. Think about how that could transform the community of Sharonville.
sure.
It would make a huge, you'd get better schools, better neighborhoods, more stable businesses, etc.
Yeah.
Now take that to the greater Cincinnati area. Think about what could happen in Norwood and in northern Kentucky, etc.
Right.
We could totally transform the community.
Yeah. Well, and you'd have much more, I guess, empowered workers. You have happier, employees.
Exactly.
And everything benefits from that. I
Right.
mean, literally. I mean, there's nothing. There's nothing worse than going to work someplace and then seeing everybody around you be miserable.
Right. Well, when you invest in your workers, they become partners in growing your business,
Yeah.
because who has the ideas around how to do your create a better product or service, or to do it more efficiently or more cost effectively?
People doing the jobs.
People doing the job.
Yeah.
So when they feel like you care about them, they care about their work, and it shows up.
Yeah.
It shows up.
And how about other benefits? I mean, as far as the health care and the bonuses and maybe time off or flexible, work schedules and that sort of thing. Are you seeing those be, really huge aspects of this too to help retain folks?
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, we worked with an employer in northern Kentucky, and it was a good company, but he knew that he could be doing better. So one of the first things that we did was we looked at his wage scale. And when we showed him some relative data, especially showing how it compared to poverty levels, he was like, oh my gosh. And he gave everybody a $2 an hour raise across the board.
Fantastic.
So then we further took a look at his health care, and he realized that people who were in his frontline positions who needed a family policy, nobody was signed up for it because it was too unaffordable. He made changes, and now he's got people signing up for it. So
That's
yes, there's all kinds of things that can be done.
That's fantastic. Well, great information. Great information. Our guest has been Janice Urbanik. She is with the National Fund for Workforce Solutions, and we really appreciate that information. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So you've been watching Business Talk. I'm Britt Scarce with Emory Federal Credit Union. That's all we have for today. Till next time, we'll see you right here on Business Talk.